So you want to start a fitness journey, but you don't know where to start. Lucky for you, I'm breaking it down for you so that you can fully understand how to have a successful fitness journey that will be sustainable, exciting, and not intimidating. If you don't know me, my name is Haley. I'm your realistic and balanced bestie, helping you build a stronger brain and body. This is part 1 of your 7-part guide to every single minuscule little thing that you need to do to have the best fitness journey ever. I set this up with not only my 8 years of experience in my own fitness journey, but also the experience of training over 200 people in the last 6 years. So today we're breaking down everything you need to do and lock in before you start your fitness journey. And I know that might feel a little bit backwards, but just trust me on this. So this might be the week before you start your journey, or it might just be a week where you're debating on even starting your fitness journey. Whatever it may be, I think these things are key to figure out and lock in before you actually start. So step number 1 is to pick a goal. And I know that might sound a little bit redundant, but the fact is that in order to get what you want, you have to know what you want. And I know we all think that we know what we want, but when we actually get something laid out and fully can see it as a plan, you're going to realize that you have different goals than you might have thought that you had. And more importantly, it's important to have a goal that actually is achievable and makes you want to achieve it. So for example, if your goal every single year is like, oh, my New Year's resolution is to lose 20 pounds, but the only reason you have that is because your mom keeps telling you that you need to lose weight, that's not actually something that is an exciting goal for you and not something that's gonna light you up. So you're probably never gonna actually achieve it. And not to mention that New Year's resolutions are generally a little bit too broad for our brains to comprehend most times. And that's because we convince ourselves, oh, I have all year to accomplish this, so it's fine. I'll just start next month. I'll start next month. I'll start tomorrow. And you just keep pushing it off till the end of the year where you're like, oh my God, I actually didn't do anything that I said I wanted to do. So instead of a New Year's goal, we're actually gonna set a 12-week goal. And that does mean that your goal has to be something that's actually achievable in 12 weeks as opposed to a full year-long goal. But the nice thing about a 12-week goal is that you have 4 times the amount of time throughout your year to achieve your goals in smaller portions. And I like to think of that as 4 different times to reinvent your life as much as you can possibly do. So to create our 12-week goal here, we're actually going to work in 3 parts to pick these goals. So we're going to grab a journal or just write down in the notes of your phone, whatever it is, because you gotta get this down. You gotta get it out of your brain and you gotta get it somewhere solid here. So for part number 1, you're gonna pick a feeling goal, and you can get as deep or as just general with this as you possibly want, but I want you to imagine yourself at the end of these 12 weeks. So you're gonna kind of think through a day in the life of yourself at the end of these 12 weeks. Try to get as detailed as you possibly can on this portion. So everything from what you're gonna be eating, what you're gonna be doing, what you're feeling, what hobbies do you have. The more that you can tap into this feeling, the more likely you are to actually achieve it. Try to summarize the end there in 1 word, and that is your feeling goal here. Part number 2, you're going to pick a tangible goal. So this might be something like deadlift 200 pounds, run a mile in 10 minutes, or bench press 95 pounds. Performance goals are the biggest thing for you to focus on whenever you're starting any kind of fitness journey because they are easily trackable. They are something that you can look at and be like, I either did this or I didn't do it. And they're also incredibly rewarding because of that fact, because you can look back and be like, wow, this was the goal that I set in November. I hit that literally 2 weeks later, and then I set this goal and then I hit that 2 weeks later. You can really see them, and it's so much more of a rewarding feeling than having a physical goal. But with that being said, we are going to pick a physical goal. However, if you think that your mental health can't handle having a physical goal or a number or something along those lines, then feel free to skip this step. But this step might be something like lose an inch on my waist or gain 2 inches on my glutes, or it might even be lose 10% of body fat, whatever it is. I want you to keep in mind that your physical goal is the last on this list because it's essentially going to be a byproduct of you achieving the first 2 goals, and it doesn't have to be your primary focus at all. So now you know what you want to achieve, but you don't know how the fuck we're gonna get there. So unfortunately, as that annoying age-old saying goes, to achieve something you've never done, you have to do something that you've never done before. I really hope I'm saying that right because I'm actually not 100% on that. But I know that's easier said than done. And that is because our brains are wired to stick to what we know. That means that we have literal specific pathways in our brain that form when we get used to doing something in a certain way. And that means that whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, your brain has adapted a literal wiring to doing things the way that you've always done them in the past. And we can't just stop this necessarily, but we can create new pathways and new wirings in our brain. And again, I know that's easier said than done. But when you build new pathways and you start to follow those pathways, eventually your brain will learn to stick to that wiring instead of the old wiring that you had in the past. And this isn't going to be easy because you're literally going to feel like you're being pulled in two directions as you fight the desire to follow your old habits versus trying to follow your new ones. It's going to be really uncomfortable and even a little bit painful sometimes, but that goes for anything in life. You're going to feel pain if you were to stick doing the same things that you've always done, and you're going to feel pain if you're trying to do new things. So you really just have to pick your pain here. Now, the issue that most people make is by trying to just change too many habits at once, and honestly, our brain has a pretty good bullshit detector, so it knows that when you're trying to just overhaul everything in your life, you're probably not going to stick to it. It's probably going to be a short-term thing that you're going to give up on in probably a few days to a few weeks. So your brain's not going to actually fully form those wires because it's like, let's slow it down. Let's be realistic here, girl. We're actually not going to do that. So it's kind of rebelling against what you're trying to do when you're trying to do something that is just so far from where you're at right now. So one of the ways that we can fight this is we have our feeling goal from chapter 1. So when you imagine that person, you're going to think of 3 to 5 habits that this new version of you would be doing every single day. This could be anything from meditating, stretching, meal prepping, going to bed earlier, whatever it is. The goal here is to pick any habit that you know is going to get you closer to that end person of those 12 weeks. So these habits could be something that's fitness related, or it could just be something that you know is going to make your life easier and going to make it better for you in the long run. So for me, one of the smallest ones that I've implemented is just laying out my gym clothes the night before. And is this a huge life-changing deal breaker? Not at all. But it does make it easier for me to maintain my lifestyle and my routine. So that makes it a habit that is so worth it to me. And I really think that sometimes the smallest habits make the biggest differences. And I know that's super cheesy and you're like, that's dumb, but it really is so true. And did I mention that the best part about doing things like this is that I want you to focus on just one habit at a time. So even if the one that you pick is just laying out your clothes the night before, you are going to commit to that habit so intensely and you're going to do it every single day and get so excited about doing it until it's something that you're like, okay, this is just something that I do now. I'm used to doing it. And then you can start adding in your second habit, your third habit, whatever it is, until you get even closer to that end goal at the end of those 12 weeks. So for chapter 3, we are focusing all on mindset. And I'm going to really try to break this down as short as I possibly can and really just hit the key points here because I do want to do deep dives into each of these on their own videos, whatever. And I know that a lot of times people think that their fitness transformation and their mental transformation are two completely different things, but I am here to tell you that they are 1000% cohesive because you can't work on one without working on the other. And essentially your mind is like a muscle, just like the rest of your body. So why would we not train it and try to make it stronger the same way that we try to make our muscles stronger in the gym? As someone who struggled with anxiety and depression so long before I learned how to control my own mind, I completely understand that sometimes it seems like it's just too overwhelming and too much to try to even start to improve your mental health. So we're going to give you the rundown of any of the basics of your mindset here. First one is about gratitude. And I know this one sounds really annoying because it sounded annoying to me when I first thought about it. But when I started a gratitude practice, I honestly thought that it was the cheesiest, most obnoxious shit that I had ever heard in my entire life because I could not wrap my head around the fact that there were people out there in the world who were just grateful for the things that were happening to them. They were just grateful to be alive and happy with everything that was happening. I could not grasp it, and that's because that's not really the reality of it, and I just didn't understand that. But then I learned that our brains are wired to produce more of what we're already looking for. So this means that on the days where I would spill my coffee and then the next hour I would be like, oh my God, I can't believe I spilled my coffee this morning, complaining to every single person that I knew about it, because I'm focusing on that thing. Next thing I knew, I would have a flat tire, I would have a stain on my shoe, I would have spinach on my teeth, and I would literally be sitting there thinking, wow, life is literally out to get me. But just as easily as you can focus on the bad things, you can make an effort to focus on the good as well. And when you focus on the good gets better. And I know that sounds like it belongs on a Hobby Lobby pillow. I get it, but it's true. So even if you don't want to do like a full gratitude journal or anything like that, it is so important to have at least one moment during your day where you really take the time to just be grateful. Even if you can't get to that point yet where you're actually feeling grateful, just taking a moment in your day to be like, these things happen to me. That's it. No matter what it is, it's going to make an impact on your brain. So you can either take notes in your phone, you can carve out a minute right before bed and just think about 1 to 3 things that you could be grateful for, or 1 to 3 things that just happened in your day. Because gratitude breeds opportunities, and the more opportunities you have, the more that you'll have to be grateful for. That's the best little rundown that I can give you on gratitude in this short time, but I do think that it's so important to try to figure out a gratitude practice before you start your fitness journey, because you're gonna start your fitness journey and it's gonna suck. That's just a part of starting a fitness journey. You're gonna have days where you're like, I don't like this. I'm not having a good time. I'm frustrated. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm confused. You have to find a way to just try to ignore those super negative thoughts and focus on the good. So next we're going to talk about meditation. And I think that whenever you think of meditation, if you're not used to it, you can easily imagine like, oh my God, it's just sitting there being like, sitting on the side of a mountain with your legs crossed. And at its core, meditation is just simply focusing on being in your current moment. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're feeling, you are just focused on where you're at. Now, the unfortunate fact of meditation is that your mind is going to wander. And you just have to learn to bring your attention back to your body and your breath. And this was something I really struggled with when I first started meditating, because I thought that I was doing it wrong or that I was bad at it because I couldn't focus on what's going on. And then I realized there's going to be distractions. You're going to have to figure out how to bring yourself back. And that is what meditation really is. It is bringing yourself back. So you could meditate while you're doing literally anything. You could turn a workout into a form of meditation. You could turn doing the dishes into a form of meditation. You are just focusing on being where you are in that moment, completely focused on whatever you're doing. I try to start my mornings with a 10-minute guided meditation, and this is probably the most stereotypical form of meditation that I do, where I'm like actually putting on headphones and lying down or sitting down on the floor and following the guided recording. And I do love these. I think they are so helpful, but I also think that trying to just bring meditation into my every moment routine has been such a game changer, because just trying to have little pockets of time throughout my day where I'm kind of like, whoa, I'm here. I'm right here. Let me focus on what I'm doing right now. And that looks a little bit different every single day. But I really enjoy doing that because I think that meditating in the stereotypical way is very uncomfortable at first. And you really have to give yourself grace and slowly allow yourself to understand that it's going to be normal for your mind to wander, and you're going to kind of suck at it at first. And that is just something that you have to get comfortable with and accept. Now, along with meditation, I think that breathing techniques also kind of go into this. So I'm only going to really touch on 2 that I think are really helpful when you're starting your fitness journey, because I think it's just great to have breathing as a practice that we do, because breathwork is something that you can do anywhere at any time. There are 2 main breathing techniques that I think are really popular and that I teach to people, and both are proven to calm your nervous system and essentially help bring you back to the present moment at any given moment. The first one I learned about on the Huberman Lab podcast, I forget what it's called. I think it's literally just called the double inhale or something, but it's literally where it is exactly what it sounds like, where you just breathe in through your nose. Once you breathe in, you're gonna take a second breath in, and then you're gonna slowly breathe out. The second one is box breathing, and this one also is exactly what it sounds like. It's where you're gonna pick a duration of time, so whether it's like 5 seconds, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever it is, you're going to breathe in for that amount of time, hold for that amount of time, breathe out for that amount of time, and then hold for that amount of time. So just doing that over and over again, those are the 2 that I highly recommend and that I think are just super essential to have throughout your day. No matter which one you choose, if you just even take 3 minutes out of your day to do a breathwork exercise and just try to do up to 10 reps of those breathing exercises, you are going to feel such a difference in your mindset, your brain, everything. So even when you're in the gym and you're like, wow, I'm like really stressed right now, or my body is just not working with me, or I am just overwhelmed because there's so many people in here, literally just do 2 reps of a breathing exercise of your choice, and you're gonna be like, wow, okay, I can actually handle this. I'm gonna be fine. Now, the next key thing that I wanna talk about around mindset and things like that is affirmations. And I actually have a whole video on affirmations that you can go watch after this to really understand the science of them and how I think you should be doing them correctly. But you just need to know that the key with affirmations is to start with ones that you actually believe about yourself. So this could be anything from, I have incredible friends in my life, I treat people with kindness, or even my dog loves me so much. Whatever it is, you're going to start with affirmations that you wholeheartedly have so much proof and you can fully believe about yourself, because the key here is that we are building up trust in ourselves by starting with something like that we are like, yes, that's a fact. I love that. So you want to just try to repeat this one affirmation to yourself as much as you can throughout the day, whether you're setting reminders or writing it down somewhere or just trying to say it in your head. And the beauty of this is that once your brain gets used to that one affirmation, you can slowly start leveling it up and adding more increasingly positive affirmations that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but you still have the proof to back it up in the end. And overall, your mental journey is going to feel like a lot longer journey than your physical journey, and that's why I think it's so key to start this journey before you ever even set foot in the gym. If you don't, you're way more likely to give up on your fitness journey or start having really negative thoughts about your body, or be more likely to be like, wow, I suck at this because I didn't do this and this and this. And you're going to be so much more likely to just believe those things because you didn't do the work on your mindset before you even started to combat that. The same way that we overload our muscles to make them stronger over time, we need to think of it as doing the same thing in our brains as well. And just like you can look back and see your physical progress over time, there's going to be a day where you're going to look back and you're going to realize that you're reacting to a situation completely differently than the old you would have acted maybe a year ago or even a week ago. And you're going to be like, wow, okay, I did improve, and I didn't even realize that I improved that much. And I think it's almost more rewarding to notice mental progress than it is to notice physical progress. So I really try to just think of it as performing mental reps the same way that you're performing physical reps in the gym. So now that we have our goal, we have it broken down, we know the mindset behind it, we need to figure out how we're going to do it. So by that, I typically mean picking your form of exercise. And I think it's key to mention that the best form of exercise is one you'll actually do. So this means whatever your preferred form of exercise is. And I know it can be hard when you're being told things on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and people are like, this is the best exercise to do, this is the best form to do, you should be doing this. But in reality, you need to figure out what works best for you. So I encourage you to try multiple forms, whether that be running, cycling, sprinting, dancing, boxing, weightlifting, calisthenics, Pilates, yoga, whatever it is, as long as it gets your body moving. And that's because exercise shouldn't be a punishment. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but if you're able-bodied and you're capable of moving, you should take advantage of the fact that you get to move your body instead of telling yourself, I have to move my body. If you know one thing about me, it's that I grew up with a disabled mother, so I know my views on this might be a little different than most, but I have spent so much of my life trying to make sure that I don't take my able body for granted, because I've seen what it's like to have a body that's not as able-bodied as everybody else. And I really hope that you can take this as a reminder to do the same. And I feel like it's important to note that along with being grateful for the ability to move your body, you have to be able to listen to your body and know what it needs at any given moment. So some weeks you might be in a more heavy lifting mood, or some weeks you might want to do just Pilates workouts from home. And maybe some weeks you don't want to work out at all. Maybe you are just completely out of commission, fully burnt out. It is so important to let yourself go through all of these different phases, because not only does it keep fitness fun and new and fresh, but it also helps you understand your body on a much deeper level, which will allow you to know the difference between when your body is actually burnt out versus you just being a little bit too lazy. And unfortunately, the only way to really know that difference is by going through this journey and figuring it out as you go. Overall, movement is just so much more than a way to just lose weight. It's actually proven to help reduce stress and anxiety, and it boosts your endorphins every single time. So at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'll only say it one more time, but you deserve to give your body the gift of moving it. No matter how big or small those movements are, just get moving. It literally does not matter. As long as you enjoy the form of movement that you choose, you're gonna see incredible results. It's no secret that weightlifting is my preferred form, so a lot of my tips over the next few videos in the series will be weightlifting based, but if that's not your vibe, you can easily implement this into whatever form of exercise that you end up choosing. But I will say that if you're debating on your form of movement to choose and you're like, oh, well, I want to lift weights, but I don't want to get bulky, let me just debunk that for you real quick, because I think it is such a common issue for beginners to assume, and I don't blame anybody for assuming that. I thought the same thing. But I think that people confuse wanting to be toned and bulky. The way that you're going to achieve that toned look is actually by putting on muscle. Putting on muscle is not going to give you a super bulky physique because you're probably never going to eat enough to get to that point. And I've even had clients show me pictures of girls and be like, I don't want to look like that. And I have to look at them and be like, girl, she put in years of work to get to where she's looking like that. You are not going to accidentally do that. That's not something that's just going to happen to you one day and you're going to be like, oh my God, I literally am a linebacker. That's crazy. And on top of giving you aesthetic definition, muscle is actually such a key component in fat loss. And that is because the more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you'll burn while you're just at rest. And building muscle also helps protect your joints, improve your metabolism, improve your posture, your coordination, and it just overall improves your quality of life. And I also want to point out that to gain muscle, you don't necessarily have to lift super heavy giant weights. There are so many things such as Pilates, yoga, cycling, even just moderate weightlifting that can help build your muscles. So now that we have our exercise choice solidified, it's important to get real about your starting point. And I know it's so fun to think like, oh, I'm gonna work out every single day for the next year, I'm gonna hit all my goals and I'm gonna have my dream body. But that is just not realistic for anyone. So if you know that you can't consistently commit to 5 workouts a week, then don't commit to 5 workouts a week. You are literally setting yourself up for failure if you commit to something that is not feasible for your life at this very moment. And since this is all about building up the small wins, why would we set up an impossible task right off the bat that we are never going to actually be able to achieve? Contrary to popular belief, 2 to 4 workouts a week is more than enough to give you life-changing results. You just have to figure out how to fit exercise into whatever schedule you currently have, because if you're constantly waiting for the perfect time, it is never going to come. And ironically enough, if you were to wait for that perfect time, you would actually be doing yourself a disservice, because the second that your life gets busy again, you would inevitably just lose your entire routine because you tried to make a life that fits into your routine instead of making a routine that fits into your life. We all work jobs, we all have families, we all prioritize different things. So if the gym isn't something that fits into your everyday schedule, don't beat yourself up about it. Just figure out what can actually work for you. So how we can do this is by laying out our weekly schedule and really trying to see what days you can fit 2 blocks of movement into your week. So if only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you're like, okay, I think I could maybe take 30 minutes out of my day here to do a workout, then those are your 2 days. And this might change every single week, and that's okay because the movement is what matters, not the timing of it. So you have to find the number of days each week that you can fully commit to a 30 to 45 minute block of exercise and commit wholeheartedly to that block. So even if it's just one 30-minute walk a week, that is totally fine, but you have to commit like your life depends on it. And this is also helping us build that trust with ourselves, because as we commit to something and we actually show up and we stay consistent with it, our brain is going to be like, oh, she was like actually serious about this. That's crazy. We should actually try to make her do it more. And I know it wasn't Taylor Swift that said this, but I'm gonna give her the credit anyway, when she said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So much of having a successful journey is being aware of things before they actually happen. So kind of planning for your roadblock. And I have clients a lot of time who say, what do you do when you lose motivation? Or like, what do you do when you just don't feel like working out? And honestly, I plan for that to be the case. I assume that most weeks I'm not gonna want to work out or I'm not gonna be in the mood here. And I'm sure you're sensing a common theme by now about how personal you have to curate each of these steps for your own life. So really figuring out what your roadblocks are. And your roadblocks are gonna be completely different from my roadblocks. So I think the best way to do this is to list 3 to 5 things that you see stopping you from a successful fitness journey. So maybe it's meal prepping, maybe it's your work schedule, maybe it's your kids. Whatever it is, you're gonna list them all out and create a plan of action for each of them. Whether that be a meal prep service, pre-made meals, getting your kids to carpool once a week so you can go to the gym, whatever your roadblock is, there is always a way around it. So you just have to sit when you're not in the moment and you're not actually trying to battle that roadblock. You have to look ahead and be like, okay, this is how I could go about this and this is how I can fix it. So for me, it's always been meal prepping. I'm a huge fan of the pre-made meals from Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and stuff, because to me, I see that extra cost as something that is worth the convenience. And that's because if I don't get those meals, I am not eating. It's not even like, oh, I'm gonna eat bad food. I just will not eat. And you might love cooking and you see pre-made meals as a waste of money and think I'm dumb for buying them. But That's just because that's my roadblock, and my roadblock might be completely different from your roadblock. So what's a valid solution for my roadblock is going to be completely different than what's a valid solution for your roadblock. And that's kind of the whole point of all of this, is that everything is so individualized, and there's not one master plan that you're going to be able to listen to and be like, okay, I'm just going to follow this step by step and I'll get the results I want. You have to figure out how to find the solutions that work for you. And I'll be honest, I have never had a client who gave me their list of roadblocks where I wasn't able to find at least one solution for every single one of their roadblocks, because there is always something. So even if you have to get creative, ask somebody, how would you go about doing this? Or, hey, could you help me out with this? Whatever it is, you just have to figure out how you can go around it. And along with that, we also have to find our starting point when it comes to the actual exercise. And unfortunately, your ego is going to be one of your biggest enemies in your fitness journey. For some reason, I think that we've conditioned ourselves to believe that having a starting point makes us weak, when in reality, it's honestly the most freeing moment, because when you're at that starting point, you're realizing, wow, there is nowhere to go but up from here. So don't be afraid to start light and start with really focusing on your form, because I see so many people who haven't worked out in years, or maybe since high school, whatever, trying to just jump back into the way that they used to work out. And they're sitting there like, oh my God, I can't even do this. And then they burn themselves out and they can't work out or move their body at all for like 2 weeks. And chances are you're not going to be able to lift the same weight that you did 5 years ago, especially if you've spent the last year hunched over at a desk job. And that is okay. That is completely normal. I've trained over 200 people in the last 6 years, and one of the most interesting things that I noticed when I was doing in-person training was during the first few sessions, I would just tell someone, hey, we're going to do squats, go grab a weight. And I was actually testing them to see if they're selling themselves short or if they're overselling themselves. So it really shows me how they think about themselves, because the weight that they choose often tells me more about them than they even realize. So if I'm saying, hey, we're gonna start with goblet squat, and they grab a dumbbell that is literally 10 pounds when they could easily lift 40 pounds, that tells me that they see themselves as weaker or not strong enough to do anything more than this. And on the flip side, if they show up with 100 pounds and they're like, yeah, I could do this, and then they can't even actually get one rep with good form, that tells me that they need to tone their ego down just a little bit. And typically they actually realize this about themselves early on, because when I set them up with the proper form, 99% of the time, they'll be like, wow, I could actually grab a heavier weight. I really am not feeling this much. And while I do believe it's better to start with lighter weights and perfect your form, you want to make sure that you're not underselling yourself too much, because if you never push yourself out of fear of going heavier, you're never going to know what you're actually capable of. So a good rule of thumb there is that the last 2 to 5 reps should be incredibly challenging with a perfect form. So now you know your goal, you know how to get to your goal, you know what mindset shifts you need to make, you know the exercise form you're going to choose, and you know kind of a general starting point for those exercises. And I think that those are the key things that you need to figure out before you even start your fitness journey, before you even look into programs, before you look into workouts that you want to do, before you pick a gym. You need to make sure that you have these things down pat. Our next episode is going to really dive into planning for that first day of your exercise journey. So we're going to really dive into all things gym anxiety, planning your workouts, picking a program, how to properly track your progress, and all of that good stuff. And in the in-between, I highly recommend you following along with this video, pulling out a notebook, really getting deep and battling all those blocks that are in the background here as we're trying to start this journey. So until next time, be kind to your mind, to your body, and to others, and happy healing. Popping in here to remind you that I do have my own app that is full of step-by-step guides to get you to whatever goal you have for your body and for your mind. My app breaks down every single thing that you need to do to succeed at whatever goal you have, and it gives you all of the tools that you could ever possibly need to achieve your goal successfully. So if you want to start your free trial today, you can do so in the description below.